Welcome to the Golden Moment podcast. My name's Mijo Biscan. In this episode, I had a chat with my friend Tim McMillan, who is a shredding guitar player who shreds on acoustic guitar, with his collaborator Rachel Snow. It was a very fun conversation. Tim is hilarious. He's done lots of interesting touring and really worked out a niche in his music, which he refers to as goblin core. Well, it actually has a very long name that he describes, but also his stage banter. He has a particular show. He's got something very unique happening, and he's just a great guy. It was a fun conversation talking about touring as a musician, making a living as a musician, the difference in sort of culture between touring in Australia, touring in Europe, touring in Japan, all those things, and just a fun conversation. So without further ado, here is Tim McMillan. So I'm here with Mr. Tim McMillan. G'day, Tim.
Howdy.
How are you?
G'day, Mijo. Good, thanks.
Guten Tag. Wie geht's dir?
Alles klar. You're okay, but
No,
you're
no.
asking, but you know.
Cool. So Tim's in Germany right now. How's it going in Germany? What's the weather doing in Germany? So here it's end of November. It's getting warm.
Sunshine. No, we've that's actually yesterday was good. We had a sunny day, so we have like one sunny day a week, and that's our allocated day to go and do some sightseeing around the place. But the rest of the time it's grizzly. There's wild boars in the forest, so we can't do exercise at day because they're doing their breeding season. There's hunters at the moment as well, shooting. So it's pretty brutal at the moment. So we're just keeping our heads down, staying inside, working on some music.
Wow, got to go for a run with a bulletproof vest on, just in case.
Rachel's been running, and I always get worried. So she goes out and she doesn't come back after an hour. Gotta go and
make sure she doesn't dress up as a bear or something like that.
When we're walking together, sometimes if she walks in front of me, we've got our big coats on. I worry that we're going to get mistaken for a deer, so we do no single files, always next to each other.
Great, awesome, cool. So maybe tell people who are checking this out a bit about what you do and what's happening. What's been happening in the last couple of years.
So I've known Mijo for 10 years. When we first met, it was back in the days I was playing a genre of music called acoustic Viking metal, Romanian pirate groove, post-goblin core, and the genre got a bit too commercial, so I just toned it down. Now I'm just playing folk goblin shred. And I play in a duo with my partner Rachel, and we've been playing together 20 years and about full-time for 5 years, and we decided to move to Germany full-time a while ago. I think I've been living here now about 8 years and Rachel's 4 years, and we made the move because we were able to make a living from music this way. In Australia, our genre was considered very uncool, and in Germany it's also considered very uncool, but it's a higher population, so we get that sort of percentage of niche goblin nerds can fulfill our career destiny.
Great. Yeah, the numbers work out in Germany.
Crunched the numbers and it made sense.
Yeah. And when was the first time you actually went to Germany? Because it was probably longer than that. It was like 2008 or something.
No, 2006. It was Janine with Naked Raven. So that's when we first met. So I've known you 14 years, I think.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Maybe.
Well,
I've known of you for 14 years, been watching you like a hawk. But yeah, so that was 2006. So it was a 6-month tour filling in for the band Naked Raven, Australian band, and I did some schleiming, as the Germans call it, some sucking up to their manager Thomas, and he took me on. And then I started, I think, for the next 3 years, sort of jumping between Australia and Germany, doing short tours, and then working back in Australia, my day job. Then eventually just decided it was more fun playing guitar than having my day job was pretty good at the time. I was working in disability support, but I think they were getting a bit annoyed that I was nicking off for 3 months at a time and then coming back to work without a good explanation. So
yeah, they get weirded out by that. I had a similar thing working full time as a draftsman, and then I'd probably go for a month, maybe a month or two each year on tour around Australia or whatever, and they'd be like, you gotta stick around, if you want to climb the ladder and whatever, and I'd be like, oh, I don't think I do. So
yeah, well, I actually missed that job. That was they were quite supportive, to be fair, at the start. But yeah, I think the 3 months extended breaks were probably pushing it. It was just 2 weeks at a time, and then it sort of just kept getting longer and longer.
Yeah, cool. And so we'll get to talking about Al Di Meola, because I love Al Di Meola.
Oh yeah,
and you did a show with him a while ago.
Yeah, that's a funny thing. Was that? Well, I can talk about it later, but that's the reason I originally moved to Germany, because he hooked me up this awesome deal. But we can talk about that later.
Oh, well, maybe let's talk about it now, and then we can go, and then we can go back to where it all started.
That was I think that was probably one of the times where I just got back from a tour, and then I got that opportunity to support him in the town of Dachau in Germany, and it was such a good opportunity. It didn't really make sense financially because I had to fly over just for the one gig, but I was also a fan. I was like, oh, fuck it. So I told work, and they said, Al Demi who? And I said, I've got to go. It's like, all right, McMillan. And I flew off and played the gig. And then afterwards, I think, I love this word Burgermeister. All Australians love the word Burgermeister. We don't know what it means, but when you go to Germany, you're like, yeah, Burgermeister. Yeah. And I said this on stage, Burgermeister. And the Burgermeister, the Lord Mayor of the town, was pretty excited that I was the first word. He was the first word I learned in German. So he took me for beers with Al Di Meola afterwards. And Al Di Meola said, you know what? This guy's pretty good, isn't he? You should give him a house. Give him a house here. Give him the key to the city. Give him the key to the city. And he's like, okay. And he ended up giving me like a stipendium, a scholarship. So I got to stay in an artist villa and do some ambassador work for the culture aspect of the town, which had before the horrors of World War II, they had quite a rich history and culture in this town, and there was a lot of opportunity there for artists and mentorships, which I spent a year. So I ended up staying there for 6 months and liked the people and stayed for another 6 months, and that was basically when I decided that I liked it over here musically and made some friends and stayed. Yeah. And then the rent was too high in the neighboring area, so I moved up to Leipzig.
Right. Well, that's an amazing thing to have happened. Like, if you think of whether that would happen in Frankston or in Geelong, where I grew up, the Lord Mayor is just going to be like, we're going to put you up and you play music and you do what you do.
It was pretty. It was actually, the funny thing was, it all came from, I used to just play gigs to, as I said before, the genre of post-goblincore wasn't huge, so I'd play gigs for 2 people for free. And I used to play at this place called the Muse Bar, and that's where every week I'd play there for 2 people. And one day there was a guitarist there called Lucas Michelades, who was friends with Naked Raven, and I played this gig, and he said, this band's looking for a guitarist for a 6-month tour, and I can't do it, so would you like to do it? So yeah. So that all came from a little gig there, how it all sort of started over here.
And where was that? Where was that gig?
That was it's called the Muse Bar. It's not open anymore. It's a corner of Inkerman and Hotham Street in St Kilda East, like a little art gallery.
Right.
That was a pretty cool little experience.
Cool. Well, that's probably worth talking about. Your decision to be in Germany, and as far as how it's far more viable for a touring musician, because I found the same thing. Like when I quit my job here, and then I basically just went into kind of full-time touring Germany. And I mean, we can talk about that part, and then also just how culturally it's very different as far as appreciation for music. It was a different universe when I really started to do shows there. So
it depends. I guess it depends what style and what you're after, especially for, I think, sometimes for original music in acoustic style, I guess I've noticed it getting better in Australia, but when I was starting out, it wasn't as easy to find a sit-down audience unless you had a bigger name, or sort of different venues and theatres with funding to put on lots of original music. So it was a lot easier to get a covers gig in Melbourne or play in a band, but to play solo acoustic original music was quite difficult back in the day.
Yeah.
But I also remember getting to the first German audience. There was all these hundreds of people sitting down inside a castle, and I just didn't have very much confidence, and I was just shivering the whole way through. And they were so polite. I thought, wow, that's if they enjoyed that gig, then that's pretty good sign that I can have a bit of wiggle room to improve my nerves.
Yeah, cool. That's great. Yeah, one of the things I kind of noticed after doing a couple of gigs, I walked into a venue and the venue owner, when I strolled in, obviously, had a guitar, and he said, "Oh, you're the artist," and he said it in an excited tone, and I'd never heard that in Australia. Normally it's like you walk into a pub or whatever. Here it's like, "Oh, you're the muso, are you? Okay, just set up in the corner and you get 2 free drinks. And did you bring any mates?" They're just, that kind of is
That's
the
the, I
spiel.
think
It's
that
like
was
you're
the
a
brilliant part
nuisance or
about.
something.
Oh,
Sorry, we're talking over each other.
sorry, no,
Go.
I know I've got my bad forest internet delay here, so sorry if I butt in. That was one big thing, was the fact that you didn't have to bring mates to gigs, because it was difficult. I think actually what the SB Front Bar I thought was a really good venue for me when I was starting out, because there was always a ready-made crowd, and that always sort of put you on with a guarantee, which was quite cool. But it was difficult to find that situation back in the day. And in Germany, it was really cool that you're able to go to different theatres and clubs where they have funding and they have a program and they have leftover budget for promotion and promote unknown artists, as long as they sort of choose a different bunch of touring musicians and put in some effort promoting them and not leaving it all up to the artists. And I thought that was a really good way to get started over there.
Yeah. And did you notice much difference in the audiences? I mean, you mentioned sort of the sit down audiences, but
yeah, well, the way that our label does it is most of the gigs we do were 2 50-minute sets and with a break in the middle and a sit down audience, and it's very, very polite audiences, and they can get very rowdy if you hype them up. But at first, I was like shit scared every gig we did. I'd just be shivering.
Yeah.
That's why I guess I started talking a lot to try and calm my nerves, and then I just started talking too much, and it would only play 2 songs in a 50-minute set, and try and have a gas bag. So I had to sort of calm it down a bit over the years.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Speaking of your show, a huge element of it. I mean, something that I love about your shows is all the gas bagging and bags and just random stories and things like that. Is that kind of where it started, by doing kind of these bigger sets?
Sorry for always butting in, but so like it started in Australia. I wasn't talking a lot. I remember that I was a really good venue, Manchester Lane. I used to love playing there in the early days, and I wouldn't talk. I'd be so nervous. I'd just be playing and shivering and getting through it, and just had my head down, had my hat on, my head down. So people started sort of telling me I should say a few words in between songs, and I get really snotty and get really angry. But then I decided to sort of try it out, and it became a big part of the show. Nowadays, I speak sort of half German, half English, and it seems to work over here, using German words in English form and being disrespectful to the language, and they seem to enjoy it. And I've been told not to learn German perfectly or I will ruin the show, so I've got to keep it at this sort of half level.
Yeah. Great, cool. And and so those stories, they're just things you spontaneously started to go like, oh, that's a like funny story, or where did your stories come from, a particular place, or you just tried stuff out and just noticed what worked? And
I guess I'm a failed comedian. My brother's a comedian, and I sort of always like telling a few yarns. And I was really a hit at the Frankston 21st speeches. People used to invite me to their 21st just to make speeches, but then I went too far and got banned, and I had to take my comedy elsewhere. So I just started trying out some of my gags inside the show. That seemed to work. So but I've had to over the years tone it down a little bit as well, because it does also cause problems if I go too far and forget about the musical aspect of everything. So it's about sort of now 40% yarn, 60% music, which is a good mix, I think.
Yeah, that's cool. Awesome. And so let's go back in time to kind of where things kind of started for you. What got you interested in learning guitar? Because would you say that your main interest is actually guitar, because you write songs and you sing?
That
Rachel
came
sings.
later. So like a lot of our songs are same sort of thing, 20% lyrics and 80% shred, or 30%. We sometimes sing a bit more, but generally the whole set, a lot of it There's a bit more vocals these days. I'd say 30% vocals, 70% instrumental. But so originally, yeah, it was mainly guitar based, and it still is a very sort of musical based set. But we're mixing it up, I guess, with different elements like the violin, playing lots of pizzicato, almost like a dueling banjo, like a double guitar, as well as orchestral elements when she adds harmonies, and then just adds a melody. So we try and make it originally a guitar based set, but with different colors of it, and then over time different colors have sort of grown, and I start to enjoy sometimes just playing a simple song with quite simple guitar work in it, and having something in the set that varies from the acoustic Viking shred, which used to be a heavy part of the set.
Right. And do you remember the first time you realized that you were shredding on the guitar? Like, was there a particular riff where you're like, I'm freaking shredding? Like, this sounds amazing. I can shred.
Let's have a look. So I started when I was young. When I was 13, I started just from metal from the band Ugly Kid Joe, who I later got to join for a few gigs, which was my lifelong dream. And
got to tour.
That was so. Well, I think it was when I was 13, and I think I played along to their songs and stuff. And the first time I think probably just the riff from Metallica's Enter Sandman. When I was playing that, I was pretty happy with myself, grinning in the sun, my long hair floating away.
Just thinking, I've made it.
Frankston Beach.
Yeah. Good times.
Top of the mountain.
Yep. I think my moment was when I learnt the riff for Sweet Child of Mine, the Gunners.
Oh, yeah.
Track.
Actually,
like,
probably...
once I finally got it and it sounded real, I was like, I can make music. I can do this. Like, I've made it. It's a huge moment.
Great riff.
Yeah. And so were you mainly like self-taught, or did you have lessons? What was?
Yeah. I had lessons with Mr. Ken King from Mount Eliza, still a friend of his. He lives in Japan. We visited him on tour last year. Cool. He's a top bloke, and so he'd get the latest copy of Acoustic Guitar Magazine and teach me all the stuff that I wanted to know, and it was just a great way to learn, just basically learning by enjoyment, not by we'd bring the theory in and all that later on, but just the first few lessons and everything was just really learning music that I love and getting me into that the technique and all that stuff. And then later on I had Rob Papalato, who from Blue Note Music Frankston, who taught me how to read music. And then after that, I did Bachelor of Jazz Guitar at Monash, and I had James Wilson teaching me how to improvise, but I was a pretty rotten improviser. So after uni, I went back into the shred.
Yeah. The formalized shred.
Yeah, formalized shred.
do we have, I wonder if we have mutual friends from Monash. Do you know Luke Richardson from Monash?
Hang on. No, the bass player.
Yeah, double bass player. Yeah.
Double bass Luke, you mean? Double bass
Luke.
Luke.
Double bass Luke.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he played in Lamplight for a long time. But I feel like we probably know each other through
Indy
him
played
as
at
well.
one of my Manchester Lane gigs for me. So she played violin with me once, just for one gig. And Luke, I knew Luke the whole time I was there. I think I used to draw him cartoons and try and distract him while he was trying to study. And he was a great dude. I didn't realize he played in Lamplight. That's awesome. I saw that's right. I saw him. I was thinking I caught up with him. Was at your gig at Northcote. That's where I saw him again. Yeah.
Right.
Great dude.
Very cool.
So he was a whippersnapper. I think he was in the year below me.
Okay. Cool. So you used to bully him in the cafeteria.
I tried to, and then he shirked me. Think about it.
Awesome. Cool. And so you're very unique. I mean, when I think about you and what you're doing, so many elements of what you're doing is unique and kind of very original in a way. Is that something that just naturally comes from you? Do you just follow what you want to do? Do you?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I started with a lot of metal guitar growing up. I'm just picking, and then my mum played a bit of classical guitar, and I sort of always had it on the side, but really loved it. And I guess after uni, I started sort of going back into wasn't great at improvising, but I loved all this sort of Latin jazz music. So I'd start studying all that sort of stuff just for fun in my spare time. And yeah, I ended up sort of trying to fusing the two styles together. So I use a pick most of the time on a steel string guitar, but play a lot of music inspired from that style of playing Latin classical guitar. And I guess that's how it all came together. So yeah, basically what we're doing has been built with the foundation of a guitar-based set, just a solo guitar set, and everything that's sort of come on top of that has grown from there.
Yep.
If that makes sense. Sorry if I'm bumbling.
Yeah.
I'm not good at podcasts.
You're amazing at podcasts. Yeah, cool. And so, well, what else can we talk about? We can talk about touring. That's something I haven't really talked about on the podcast. So you do a lot of touring. I mean, you do a lot of playing every year. Tell us about that.
Yeah.
What do you like about it? Tell us some things you like about it, and then we'll get to things that are like really annoying about it.
Yeah, well, I think I was inspired by your 40 concerts in 40 days years ago, because I was just sort of, I wasn't touring that hard back then. Then we started touring with metal bands just as a support act sometimes, and I sort of got to see that style of life on the road. And then Rachel and I started touring in Italy, and the gigs were full on, like every day. It was 30 gigs in 30 days, so we didn't get to your 40 then. But we were doing these and yeah, really loved it. We started and then touring Poland with the same sort of, just really sort of full on tours with no days off. And then it just took over until our lives were basically this never ending tour. It went for like 3 years of maybe 150 concerts a year. So, and probably, I think we went too far and ended up getting a bit burnt out from it. And in the last year, we invented this virus. What we did is I chopped on a bat. No, sorry.
Like, we need some time off here.
Yeah, basically since then we've had some time to rethink about what we want. We've just been back in Germany. We did 30 sort of special concept open air, socially distanced gigs, which was really nice, and nice to sort of now have a bit of a balance of living a relatively normal life and also doing gigs. But yeah, the touring was a great experience, but I don't think we'd ever go back to that sort of full on 150 gigs in 150 day style thing.
Yeah. That 43 shows in 43 days. That's actually the tour poster for it up there. It's a.
Oh, I can't see. It's my face. All I can see is my face there.
Oh, right.
Which?
But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's up there.
I want to see it. I want to see it.
I'll send you a picture of it. But that was such an epic thing to do, because I'd never done anything like that either. And originally it was going to be 30 days, and then Lena, who was my girlfriend and was helping me, book. She was booking those shows. It got to 30 days solid, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen if I do this. Because in Australia, you've got to drive for a day pretty much to do another show, and sometimes 2 days to get from like Sydney to Brisbane or something. And then as we were on the tour, we were still booking more shows, and we were halfway through the tour, and I was like 15 shows in, and I was like, I don't know if I'm even going to get to 30. And then I was like, we have to stop booking shows. So we got to 43 and through the line. But it was incredible. And I'm sure you know this now from, doing so much touring and so much playing. It's such a steep learning curve. And you get to a point where the machine's very well oiled. You can kind of go a bit deeper into the playing, or even like, nerves or anything like that starts to really dissipate because you're so accustomed to being on stage. Is that your experience as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think that was an amazing part of it, especially the Italy tours were exactly as you say, just getting better and better every night, and not things you're self-conscious about just don't really seem that important when you're so tired and grumpy. Just when you're on stage, you start enjoying the gig, and that's that part of the day is actually really quite surreal when you're up there and having a good time. And sometimes the tighter you are, I found sometimes the better the gig would be or whatever, because you're really singing better or playing better and not really focused on anything. I always, sometimes in different situations, I can randomly get really bad stage fright, and it was always sort of a mission just to throw myself into those situations and try and make less of a thing of it. And I think doing those tours was really a good way of just not not really worrying what people think and just doing your best you can do.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I relate to that too. Sometimes when I was like dead tired, sometimes I'd be sleeping like just before the show, like,
Yeah,
and then I'd get woken up and pretty much put the guitar on and then step in front of an audience, and I'd be like bleary eyed, like, all right, and have to perform. And you also learn that you can tap into whatever you need to tap into to make the show great. Like the energy comes, the adrenaline comes, you kind of can just step in and do it.
Yeah, also just never judging a venue or an audience beforehand, because some of the places where you turn up and think, oh, what's happening here, would be the best nights there could be, and other ones where you've been bigged up for ages can not work out as you'd planned. So it's always just treating every gig as a gig, and even if there's maybe a tiny small audience, but doing your best. That's another great lesson I found, that some of the best gigs we did were completely tiny audiences, and what would look like a bummed out style night ended up being really good. So
I found that some of the house concerts I did, if there were I'd get there and the host would be like, it's gonna be like 7 people here, and internally I'd be like, oh man, like this is such a waste of my time. And then I would walk out of that gig with like more income than from shows where there were 30, 50, 70, 80, 100 people. People were just super generous. They'd buy all the merch. They had such a like unique experience.
Exactly. And that can make it more magical when it's like 7 people who get to enjoy enjoy a set just like that. So sometimes you can have some really magical musical experiences with a tiny crowd.
I think those memories are very lasting. Like there's someone who I've done a podcast episode, this guy Daniel Lang, who he actually comes to mind. There was like a tiny house concert, but we've stayed in touch since then. He came and stayed with me in Berlin. We're always trying to meet up when he comes to Australia, but those connections are really powerful. So actually, maybe speaking about like those connections and sort of fans and growing a fan base, are you noticing that from sort of consistently touring that people come back and you develop those relationships?
Also, I've sort of always been good at just putting crap up on Facebook and spamming and all that sort of thing, but I found that doesn't always translate to people coming to the show. So you can have a good online following, but it doesn't necessarily always bring people to the show. So we started sort of basically playing similar venues all the time and getting an email list, like you have different ways of promoting yourselves, and just staying regular. Like if you're playing in the same towns once a year, at least people know to look out for you, and to look out for your website if they're not on social media or anything. So just I guess I got a bit smarter about that in the last year, and it seemed to work a bit better. Having the same people coming regularly and bringing friends. But we're not Bon Jovi or anything, but we try our best to keep a fan base that will come to. But then sometimes also we're not big in capital cities, so we do like Hamburg and Berlin are sometimes some of the smallest gigs we play in the year, whereas we might have a few hundred in a big chicken village, Gross Hennersdorf, in the middle of Saxony, and then and there'll be regulars, and then we'll play in Berlin to 3 people or something. So it's always, but then sometimes we might get lucky in Berlin. This year, last year we had quite a good one there. And that's over time. People who hadn't seen us maybe for 3 years or 4 years had remembered us or seen some promo and come back, all on the same night. So sometimes people are still following you, but they can turn up at different times and when you at least expect it. So but Berlin, I think, is the most difficult city to play gigs in the world. So there's too many. I think every member of the population is in a band, and they're too busy doing gigs to come to gigs. So
everyone's got a gig on. They can't go to anyone else's gig.
Or maybe we just suck and everyone in Berlin hates us.
I doubt it. I mean, it's a very creative city. I haven't been there for a while, but it's very saturated with lots of stuff happening all the time, which makes it amazing, but also makes it challenging to get people to come out to your stuff. But
we were living there for a few years and yeah, it's a great city, great cultural city. So not bagging Berlin, love Berlin, but
Yeah.
But yeah, we actually, the reason we moved was because we couldn't find a parking spot anymore outside our house. We'd get home from tour, like a 4 or 5 hour drive, and then spend 2 hours driving around looking for a parking spot. So I said, screw this, we're moving to the forest.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. And when it comes to recorded music, do you have a favorite way of doing that? I mean, how many albums have you done? Have you done like 5 albums, 5 or 6?
Yeah, so I think, actually, that's a good question. I think, hang on, I didn't do it. That's funny. Yeah, so five
Sounds like you're casting
albums,
a spell.
and then the last album. Yeah, so it's a five albums with guests, and the last being with Rachel, and then the most recent one is a collaboration with Rachel and I. So it's our first duo album. We recorded that last year, and that's the first time I've sort of done it the proper way, where you actually rehearse and then you go into a studio and you record, rather than editing and sort of. So that way, we went last year to near Dresden, a small castle, and recorded in this. Spent 5 days there recording in it, and it was a really cool experience. And we did it right with playing it all live, and it was really happy with how it came out. It's quite a first album without any sort of guest instruments and special effects and all that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Just the two of us, and it was, I guess, the first album that really sounds how we sound live, and was I think that was a really cool way to do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, recording in a castle, that's always the best way to do it. That's pretty Goblin core.
Well, I think that's Thomas's way to get me out of that, because I'm always doing it in my home studio and I don't have the greatest equipment. I think Thomas said, "Hey, you've got Castle Studio. I've booked you you can stay there overnight. Sounds pretty good. There's also a studio there, if you feel like recording." So it worked out quite well.
That's another awesome thing about Europe and in Germany. Sometimes you're just on the Autobahn and you'll just see a castle like on a hill, like just kind of crumbling. You're like, how did someone just let that crumble? Like,
didn't you know what? We played in Ludwigsburg, and there was down near Stuttgart, and there was a crumbled castle on the hill, and we said, "Oh, how old's that?" It's like, "Oh, it's only 90 years old." Poets and musicians liked ruins, and they found it very inspiring. So the way I built this ruined castle up here. So it was never actually a castle. They just built the ruin. Just this crumbled wall.
That's great. Yeah, that's German efficiency. You don't have to wait like 700 years for it to crumble. Amazing. Cool. What else? Are you doing any more of your YouTube videos? I'm probably harking back to something you did like 10 years ago. You did some animated.
I always think of it. Well, it's funny you asked. I do get a lot of requests. I had a cartoon, for anyone watching, I had a cartoon series. If you type in Tim McMillan stories, you'll find it. It's basically about me getting dogged by my mates in Frankston, trying to play guitar, make it in the Goblin scene, getting stepped on. And
everyone should go and check that out, and they should share it on social media.
Yeah, it's got some special guests. We have members of Mr. Bungle, Cog, Mammal, different metal bands popping in for some guest voices. It's so I was doing that for a while, but no, I think I got sick of. Actually, they took way too long for the 3-minute episodes. They took a lot of time, even though they're really dodgy drawings. So I just decided to Instagram stories instead, so you can see our last 4 years on tour. Pretty much every second I've been filming the last 4 years on Instagram. So if you go there to Tim McMillan, you can check it all out.
Yeah, people should also definitely check that out. It's got to be the best or one of the best kind of Instagram stories to follow. It's always like really zany and interesting, and that's very cool.
Yeah, Rachel's gonna kill me one day for filming her walking everywhere up mountains and stuff.
Yeah, she does feature quite heavily in it, which is good. Cool. And what are you working on? Anything at the moment, or how have the COVID, socially distanced gigs been going? What have you noticed about doing those?
Well, that's it started. I think so. We're just going back into a semi-lockdown here, so we're doing one little government gig. So for the Burgermeister this weekend, it's more of a private thing. But apart from that, it's all dried up. But in the last months, we did about 30 concerts. So mostly open airs. And if they were inside, they were in bigger venues where they could have a third of the capacity. So I guess that's what it's probably going to, what I was reading in The Age was similar to what you'll be experiencing in Melbourne soon. And that was, it took a bit of time to get used to, because actually I think some of the crowds were told they're not allowed to or anything like that. So it was all very
right.
I was like, oh no, they hate us. But then they'd stand up and do that if they were really excited. So we got used to that sort of thing. But in every state here, it was different rules, and it was sort of just getting used to the audience being quite far away. And also afterwards, it was, they'd be sent out, they'd be come in one way and sent out the other way, and it was not really much time to make friends and chit chat and all that sort of thing. But yeah, it was still just nice playing live again. We spent so long after playing, 4 years of non-stop touring or whatever, and then having nothing for 6 months. It was just good to be doing it again. So that was cool. But I think now we're going to be here for the winter until we can get back to Australia, hopefully in March. And just working on a new album and some different collaborations as well. So we'll do a bit of demo making in the home studio and then take it back to the castle. The castle's really good. It sounds really sort of snobby recording in a castle, but it's quite affordable studio called Castle Studios near Dresden, if anyone's interested.
I'm definitely going there when I come to Germany.
Castle Studios.
Yeah.
It's not like Prince William style exclusive. It's
is there
anyone
like
can
a
go
butler?
there.
There's a butler and a chef, and
that's pretty full on. We had they've got an old dungeon where they send reverb down to that was really cool. So you do your recordings and they have speakers down there where they'd send it and I'd collect the reverb and bring it up from the dungeon. It's like different stuff like that.
That's so perfect.
And yeah, it's quite an experience.
Yeah. One of the Lamplight records we did was recorded in a jail. Do you know the Castlemaine jail?
Oh yeah. No way.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So they closed it down, and then there was this period where it became like a conference center, which is a very strange idea. And then they were between renovations, and I got in touch with them, and we ended up being able to record there. But there was also there was a solitary confinement area, and it's a sandstone prison. It's real old school. And so you go down these stairs, and it's like all wet and dank. And I did my vocal takes in the solitary confinement thing. I spent hours in there, and it was a very weird experience. I was seeing stuff coming out of the dark. The sensory deprivation was very strange.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And, I'm claustrophobic. I don't know if I could do that one.
Yeah. It was weird. But also, Indiana did all her violin parts down there, and we just used the natural reverb, and it sounded great. But
awesome.
Yeah, so castles, old school castles and dungeons it's the way of the future.
It's the way to go. Yeah.
And another place that's sort of interesting to go that we've both been to is Iceland. So we have this.
Oh yeah.
We haven't talked about Svavar yet.
Yeah.
So we have a mutual friend, Svavar Knutur, and he was actually he was the first guest on the podcast because I did so much of the songwriting and stuff in his place in the far north.
Yeah.
So, but you went there for a while.
Well, we were supposed to do our album there, but his mum gate crashed the party. So actually 2 of the tracks off our new album are actually recorded in the same house. And we were just getting settled in it's feeling great. This is going to be fantastic. What an album recorded in Iceland. Imagine the hype. It's going to be amazing. And hey, everybody. Champagne bottles open. Slava's mum and her friends coming in. All right. Oh, we double booked it. Whoops. You can stay anyway. Don't worry. It's we had all Spava's mics and everything set up. But she was a lovely lady, to be fair. And we had a lovely time with her. But then we had to rethink our operation, so that's how we ended up in the castle.
Right. Okay, cool. Yeah, she's a super sweet, amazing, great person, but yeah, that would have been quite heartbreaking. The first time I went there, I had the place to myself for almost a month, and then the second time, her name's Siggy. She came in. She crashed for a few days, and I was seething. I was like, how could she, interject into this creative space? Doesn't she understand? I need this. And then I I realized it was her house.
I know, I was there for free on her house, so there's nothing I could do.
Yeah. I was like, actually, she's been extraordinarily generous, and the best I could do is actually cook for her and hang out with her. And we had fun, like picking wild berries, and
cool.
She got me working with the neighbor, the farmer, to round up sheep. And I thought, oh, this'll be cool. But it was like, like it's a huge area and there's these massive mountains.
You have to go up the mountains. I know, I've seen that.
Yeah, I was climbing up the mountains for like a whole day chasing these sheep.
We were actually wondering how they do that. It's crazy.
Yeah, there was like a whole patio. There was like 20 or 30 people involved, and they had like these little 4-wheeler motorbikes. And I was just on the far end of just the middle of nowhere. I was like, if I roll an ankle here, I'm just dead. They won't find me. But yeah, but it's and you've toured Iceland a few times as well, or?
Yeah, I think 3 times now, which has been great. Yes, his father's been a legend. We've done 2 tours with him and 1 with Scully, another musician. And yeah, just amazing. Like I always tell the story about Svava on stage. His driving was pretty extreme because he's got, as the story goes, he's got his Mazda 323 with a custom roof and the horns through the side he's inherited from his opa, and he was always, so she's a social media guru, but he was on the phone the whole time and driving on these fjords. And I called him up on it once, and he told me that, he said, "Do you realize how dangerous the roads are in Iceland? The chances of us getting killed because of my Instagram is pretty much 0 compared to falling rocks, fjords, and sinkholes." And he's naming all the things. So that was terrifying. So we ended up having a big wrestling match on the Western Fjords, and I threw his phone into the sea. Brutal. But he was a really good, generous tour manager, and what an experience to play in Iceland. It was awesome.
Yeah. That's actually, you've got his voice down very, very well. That sounded like him, exactly what he would say. Like, do you know the probability of falling into a sinkhole?
He gave me the figures. The figures for sinkhole was far higher than Instagram.
Yeah. It's an amazing place to travel. Where else has music taken you? Because I remember, early on when I was starting to make music, I wanted to travel, but I always had this idea that music would be the vehicle that allowed me to go and travel and see different places. And I suppose that's what's happened with you. You're touring around, but where are some? I mean, you mentioned Japan, but where are some places you've been and some highlights?
So early on, India. I love it. India is one of my favorite countries. I've only been there once. We were supposed to return there this year for a tour, and unfortunately, it hasn't happened because of everything. But hopefully, one day back there. Ecuador in South America, and that was a really cool experience. Rachel spent a lot more time in South America, but I'd love to go back there some stage. And just by chance, these places will pop up because of a contact or whatever. But yeah, Japan twice, so 3 times there now, and twice on tour. It's been amazing. But mainly recently, just exploring around Europe. So Poland's been really great place to tour, really friendly people. And I've learnt the same 40 words in Polish that I've learnt in German, so I can do the stage show there really, really easily. Mama's boy is Milchbubi in German, and Mami Synek in Polish. And jestem Charmida na rolkach means ich bin tollpatch mit Rollschuh, which means I'm clumsy with rollerblades. So all the essentials.
Yeah, exactly. That'll help you get you a visa in any country.
But yeah, so so I think for our set, just for whatever reason, was Scotland's been really awesome. We've been there a few times, and England and Germany, Poland seem to be the audiences that have received us the best so far.
Yeah, and in places like India and Japan, I imagine there's some type of language barrier or something that happens. What do you find there? Is it pretty fine, or
I think in Japan, I ended up having to do the same thing. In the first few gigs, I tried to be just Johnny Ozelot and talk Australian to them, but they didn't really pick up on it. So I learnt the same sort of show, learning some stories in Japanese. And it worked out really well. So I think that made quite a big difference to their gigs going really well compared to just sort of being not as enjoyable for everyone. So it was a really big part of the set, I guess, is connecting with the audience, and learning a bit of the language was really helping me with that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it does make total sense. Like when you learn a little bit of the culture, people, they just appreciate that so much, don't they? They just love it.
Yeah. You know, actually, Iceland's the one place where they said, please speak English, because I tried to do some Icelandic and they weren't having a bar of it. So they speak better English than me over there. So it's,
yeah, that was one thing I found surprising of touring around. There are some places where you think, oh, this is going to be a challenge, but their English is just incredible.
Yeah.
I think, in Iceland, I think their English it's like proper English is better than a lot of, Australians' level of reading and writing. And they know probably 7 languages.
I have a lot of Germans telling me off about my English sometimes, because they've all learnt the Cambridge, Oxford English, or where. I've had a friend who was studying in Cambridge as medicine. He couldn't speak English that well before he left, and when he came back, he was fluent, and he was telling me off for my bad sentence structure and general Frankston English.
Cool, awesome. Well, is there anything you've got coming up, or anywhere you want to direct people so they can join the festivities of all the things you've got going on?
Yeah, well, so for the moment we're just pretty much heads down and making music. But if you like to check us out, we're a duo, Tim McMillan and Rachel Snow, and we're not for everyone, but if you like us, then you're welcome to be our friend for life.
Yeah,
acoustic shred and lovely violin and some soft vocals and a few yarns.
Yeah, it's a beautiful combination. It's so good. Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you're looking for us and you can't remember our names, type the genre post-goblin core, because the last time I checked, there's no other bands in this genre. You can find us there on Google.
And I'll put links, with this video wherever people are checking it out, so they can go get involved in everything you got going on. But thanks heaps for the chat. It's been really great.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Hanging out. And
I don't usually talk to people because I'm a bit shy. So I hope I did an all right job.
You did.
Awesome. First podcast ever.
Ah, yeah. Awesome. I'm honored. That's great. Cool. And I really look forward to seeing you back here in Australia, or when I come to
it'd be great
Germany.
to catch up again. Yeah, for sure. You're always welcome. Anyone's welcome to stay here on the farm with us if you're passing through. Just give us a bell.
Great. Awesome. Well, thanks, man.
Thanks, mate. No worries. Cheers, man. See ya.
So I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Tim. It was varied, all-ranging. We went all over the place, and it was just fun, really, to get to chat with Tim. We've known each other a long time, and we rarely actually get to sit down and hang out, because we're either performing or touring or whatever. So that was fun. You can check out more of Tim and Rachel's music in the links below. Go and check that out. In the links below, you'll also find a link to download some of my music at mijobiscan.com/free music. If you want to go buy one of my personalized signed CDs, the Golden Moment CD, you can head to mijobiscan.com/GMCD. You can get hooked up. And while you're here, it'd be awesome if you would like to rate the podcast, review the podcast, give it a thumbs up, share it on social media, send us an email, let us know what you liked, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can chuck in some comments below. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you on the next podcast very soon. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.